Going live. Hey everybody, even though there's nobody here yet, I say hello to everybody even though I don't have anybody in here. As usual, I'm going to gather people in here and we'll see what happens. I've got a little bit of a cocked video there. I'm off center, but I guess that'll be alright. So I'm going to sit here and just talk to myself until Florida Jim gets here. Hello, Florida Jim. How you doing, brother? You're number one. You got here first. And then we have Cornbread. How you doing, Cornbread Burgess, 12B, Georgia? D.A. Archer. So glad you're here, brother. Liberty Smith. All right, we got 5 of you in here. We're going to wait just a minute, and we're going to gather some other people in here. I've got some pretty good information tonight. Margot, how are you doing? You're number 6. So we're getting people in here, but I've got some information tonight that's going to be a touchy subject for a lot of people. I'm not a history teacher, but tonight I'm going to be talking a lot about history. So yeah, Florida Jim, you were first, brother. And I'm glad you're doing good there, Cornbread. I hope all of you are. 12B Georgia, and my buddy in Alaska, D.A. Archer, and Pete the Patriot. Pete the Patriot's a great guy. And I'm going to be giving shout outs here in a little while. But I'm going to let some people gather in here. And while we're gathering, Liberty Smith, glad you're here, my friend. Bob, you're always welcome, and you know that. I know you called a little bit ago, but I wasn't able to get to you right away. Shonda, glad you're here, Shonda Graphics, Ancient Drummer. BWYA Adventures, glad you're here. And Fred Naughty, I just noticed the other day that it says Naughty. So, hey Fred, how you doing, buddy? Glad you're here. Let's see, we'll let you know I'm going to be changing my email to a simpler email for anybody that wants to email me. And it's going to be deplorablebobby@gmail.com. That's real simple. Jervis, how you doing, brother? Kay, glad you're here. First time. God bless you too. Said, hey man, sorry I had to refresh the sound was out. That's great, D.A. I'm glad you're back. Always good to see you and Jervis and Dangerous Freedom and Florida Jim. And Kay, I want to thank you for being here. You're a first timer, so you are the most important person here. I promise you that. Thank you, Jervis, for welcoming her. All y'all welcome Kay to the chat. I want to thank my subscribers, and I want to thank my viewers. Those of you who are viewers, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and leave a comment. Hit the bell icon so you'll know when I'm going live. Better than that, hit that like button. That like button means a lot. But I have a couple of people that I want to thank tonight. My PayPal information will be somewhere in the chat, and I'll leave it in the description below if you'd like to contribute to this channel. But if you can't contribute, all I can ask is that you view and that you leave a comment and hit that like button on your way in or out, and we're good. My new phone number is, I have a new internet number, and we have, let's see, we have James Wells. Glad you're here, brother. I've missed you, and I hope Darlene is well. Warhorse, glad you're here. You're right, brother. We're all patriots here. And Willman 757, glad you're here, brother. You're a regular, and I appreciate it every time I see your name. My new phone number is 404-900-1777, and if Spirit Talker, if you could put that in there in the chat, I'd appreciate it. As well as my email, deplorablebobby@gmail.com. Yeah, we're waiting on Spirit Talker. His screen hasn't come up yet, but I want to thank Joshua Conlon. I don't see him in here yet, but I'll try to call him out if I do see him come in. But Joshua, I want to thank you for your kind PayPal donation, as well as Ron, Dangerous Freedom. Thank you for your donation. I love when Ron leaves me a donation, because he always leaves me something like 5.56, which is the caliber for an AR, or he leaves me some kind of 1776, something patriotic. Let's see here. Kay says, thanks for the warm welcome. Sending people your way. Yeah, Kay, do, because on this channel, we're all about each other. I'm not a grow channel. I never have been, and I never will be. But I want my people in the chat to talk to each other. I want them, if you don't know them, go to their channel. Look them up. Watch a video or a live stream. If you like what you see, subscribe. Hit that like button. Hit the bell icon. Leave a comment. Get locked in. Because the only way you can get locked into a channel is to do that. So let's do that for our fellow patriots. Let's all check each other out, and let's all take care of each other. And let's see, Florida Jim says, heck, I'd be a 25-cent donation. Florida Jim, man, I love you, brother. And I don't desire donations from anybody who doesn't want to contribute or can't contribute. Don't even worry about stuff like that. Common Sense with Elizabeth has joined us. She's another great lady, and I really like her a lot, as well as Shonda Graphics and Liberty Smith. Jeff Brandow, I just saw your name. Glad you're here. We get some people in here, so I'm going to get started here in a minute. I got several topics, and I'm going to start off with the mind and soul of America. And then I want to talk a little bit about some truths, some honest-to-God truth about slavery in America. And I want to talk a little bit about reparations. I don't know how to say your name, but it's A.N.J. Venture. So glad you're here. And D.A. Archer, yeah, I hope Shonda's doing well as you, man. She's a sweet, sweet lady. I love Shonda. She's really good. She's a good mod. So is Jervis and everybody in here. You're great people, and I'm grateful that you're here. Well, we're going to talk a little bit tonight. We're going to start off with the minds and soul of Americans and what's happening in our country today. And I'm going to tell you, people, it's a sinister war. It's a sinister war that's underway. A war of mental conditioning. It's a new united front. A communist, socialist, and liberal media front. It's all about politics. And they attack the American mind and soul as something immoral and hopeless. People, we aren't like that. But this is what the Dems say about us. We are something to be reviled as racist. In every tweet and every news story, we are demonized as white nationalists over the airwaves, over Twitter, over every social media platform, to bring their consensus to the public square that we are all white nationalists and we're all racist. The brainwashing war on the American mind and soul isn't new. This stuff has been going on forever. In fact, it was over 100 years ago. Advanced and highly organized ways to immerse communist powers into our society. After 1917 and the Russian Revolution, it became rampant in America. These powers have been used to destroy our nation from within by undermining religion and our morals, breaking down the family structure, and subverting our education system. While our generals were all fighting wars against communist armies all over the world, a different kind of army of communists and socialists and liberals never stop attacking the mind and the soul of Americans here at home. And that's where the problem lies. We can fight wars overseas. We can send brave young men to fight and die for America. But right here in America, we are under attack every day by I'm not going to say fellow Americans, because these people do not believe in the American way of life or the American structure of politics or anything else that is good and human. You know, since Trump was elected in 2016, he's been rising to counter the revolutionary agenda, you know, to restore America as a nation. Because under Clinton and even Bush's, all the way back to Reagan, you know, Reagan was our last great president in my mind. The Bushes were wishy-washy and effeminate. And speaking of effeminate, so is Bill Clinton. And Barack Hussein Obama is totally effeminate. I mean, come on. He was our non-American Muslim faggot president. And that's just the way I see it. I don't care if you like it or not. He's a homosexual piece of crap. And I'll be talking about his failures in a little bit. But you know, it's a never-ending battle that will rage. And it'll rage well past the 2020 elections. Because these demon rats never stop their attacks. If they can't attack you or me, if they can't attack our Constitution or the amendments, they attack Trump. If they can't attack Trump, they attack fellow politicians. All they do is attack. All they want to do is tear down our structure, our political structure, and our human structure in America. There's an ever-intensifying attack against American mind and soul. Being a racist and a white nationalist is what they say we are. The odd thing is, we aren't seeing and hearing this from the fringe of the Demon Rat Party. It's coming from the mainstream media Democrats, the old guard. It's coming from those people who have been around forever in the Demon Rat Party. Demon rat politics today are all about whipping up race against borders, against immigration, against pro-lifers, gun owners, and anything American or anything Trump. You're right, Warhorse. They've got the mainstream media backing them up. And let's see what Florida Jim had to say. Bobby, I'm watching you while in the shower. Oh my God, that's too much. I don't want to talk about you in the shower, Florida Jim. Common sense with Elizabeth. I had an argument with somebody I've known for 19 years. She obviously listens to the leftist news and has become a demon rat. She called me a racist, but she didn't say racist because she was trying to be nice. Well, I don't know if they know how to be nice. These gnats are flying around me, people. You have to pardon me. You know, according to the Dems, the national Islamist Louis Farrakhan. Now, I know all of you know who Louis Farrakhan is, but let me give you a little history on Louis Farrakhan. You probably don't know. Louis Farrakhan claims to be the Black Messiah. The Black Messiah from Summerville, Georgia. Well, I got news for you. Summerville, Georgia is just up the road a little piece, about 40 or 50 miles. And I'm going to tell you, that is one of the most backward towns that I've ever been to in Georgia. And I've been all over this state and all over this country. And it's a little do-nothing, know-nothing town. But the Black Messiah, Louis Farrakhan, came from Summerville, Georgia. But you know, excuse me, Farrakhan has been right all along. With all of his rhetoric and all of his condemning the white race. He's been right. He's been right all along. He's been right about the blue-eyed devils. You and I. He's been right all along. White America is racist because they say that we are. And they shout it out every day that we are evil. And all of us know that evil must be fought and it must be eradicated from earth. Evil cannot be tolerated. You're right, Warhorse. He's a big-time con man. And Warhorse said, thank God he did, Dangerous. I'm glad you people are talking to each other. Sam Tampa, glad to see you, brother. Disabled Vets Perspective, Shonda Graphics, Willman, 757, Dangerous Freedom. Glad you're here. Pete the Patriot. Pete says, God is good all day, every day. And that's exactly the truth. Jeff Brandow, glad to see you, Sam Tampa, and Joshua. Joshua, I called you out a little bit ago. I want to thank you for your kind PayPal donation Friday. That was very kind of you, and I thank you very much. You are a good friend and patriot, and I thank you. You're helping me to keep this channel going, because I'm going to tell you, I thought it was going to be a cheap deal when I started this YouTube thing, but I found over the last 8 months or so that, yeah, we have to spend the money every now and then to upgrade and to keep up. But yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate it. Y'all check out Sam Tampa if you don't know him. Sam Tampa's a young man in Florida, and he is, I believe, 18 years old, but he's got a good head on his shoulders. Florida Jim brought him into the Patriot family, and he's a fantastic kid. And I don't mean that disrespectful by calling you a kid, son. It's just I'm old as dirt. So anybody who's younger than me is pretty much a kid. But the question has become, should a cataclysm of any kind come upon us, you know, and Trump not win his re-election? Could you imagine if he didn't win? Well, how will the Dems like Kamala, I slept my way to the top, Harris, and Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, and Meet Me in the Bathroom Booker, and all these other demon rats like Uncle Pedophile Joe Biden, you know, what would they do as president? Do we American patriots just become, I got to get this word right, the kulaks of Stalin's USSR? Or are we the new Jews of Hitler's Germany? You see, as patriots, we are no longer allowed the freedom of press. We're no longer allowed the freedom of speech. We're not allowed to have our weapons. You know, we are having our rights taken away every day by these demon rats. They're not taking them away legally or politically, but in the mind of these demon rats, they have us over a barrel. But people, I'm a true American patriot, and I believe, like D.A. Archer and Spirit Talker and Dangerous Freedom and Warhorse and Common Sense with Elizabeth, we American patriots who love our country and our God we will prevail. Jeff Randall says, I'm sick of being labeled a racist. My neighbor of 20 years, whom I treat like my own father, is 97 years old, a World War II vet. He is a black man, a nicest guy you ever met. Brother, it doesn't matter if you're black or white, and you're right. Battle Droid said that Trump is going to win next year. Most appeal judges and district judges. You're right. Antifa wishes they were tough and dangerous, said Warhorse. Well, I'm going to tell you something, people. I'm getting off of my script here, but you're right. You know, I'm tired of being labeled a racist, and I admit, I'll be the first to admit, that at one point in my life, I really wasn't a racist. It's just I didn't understand, or I really didn't even know any black people. I mean, to be honest with you, I never met a black person until really I went in the Army. There was maybe one or two in our high school, but I never really met them. You know, I saw them, I knew what their names were, but we never had interactions. And when I went in the military, I'm going to tell you, I had a rude awakening. I guess I led a sheltered life here in northwest Georgia, but I never had a problem with a black person until I went in the military because I'd never been around them. But you know, I'm sick of this racial crap. You know, we are all Americans. We don't need this racial divide. And in a minute, I'm going to give y'all a little history on this racial divide, and I'm going to tell you the truth about what's been happening in America since the early 1600s and how it has become the norm today. So it's easy to see the dim rats' hard, cold eyes see us only as racist and as white nationalists. And it's clear that they do not want any true American patriot to survive. And that's plain and simple. And you know, somehow I misplaced my... Where did my papers go? Spirit Talker, do you see them? Yeah, I see them. All right, people, I'm sorry. They all slid off behind me here. So let me get them back. That just shows you that I'm doing a live stream. It's not scripted too much. And I just lost all my papers. They fell behind me. So you see, that shows I'm human. And that shows that I screw up. And I can laugh at myself. And so can you. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit. I want to tell you the truth about slavery. I want to tell you the exact gospel truth about slavery and how it started in America. You know, some of you might know our history. America has a jaded history, I'll agree. But many of you know about this topic, but I'm dedicated to the truth. And what I'm about to say is the real truth. And it's about slavery in America. This is fact, people. This is in history books if you want to go look for it. But according to the colonial records, the first slave owner in America was a black man. Prior to 1665, there were no legal slaves in the colonies. I'm talking about the 13 original colonies, of course. They only had indentured servants. And all masters is not my word, this is the word that came out of the history book. All masters were required to free their servants after 7 years. 7 years was the limit that an indentured servant could be held. Upon their release, they were given 50 acres of land, and this included any black man purchased from slave traders. So, get this through your heads, because it took me a minute. In the beginning, in 1665, we did not have slaves in America. We had indentured servants. I'm going to tell you the truth. My family, I've researched it back to 1664. And I'm going to tell you, my family were indentured servants. They worked 7 years for a man and toiled the fields and worked the fields and put their blood, sweat, and tears into it for 7 years. And after 7 years, they were given 50 acres that they could call their own, and they became a free people. But indentured servants did not just include white people, white men. Indentured servants were black, white, they were brown, they were Indian, They came from all over. It was not slavery. It was not slavery, people. It was indentured servitude. And that's all it was. Prior to 1665, there were no legal slaves in the colonies. Only these indentured servants. But you know, Anthony Johnson, remember that name. He was the first, and I'm using the words out of this column, people. I'm not using my words because I know some people in here probably going to get mad because I say this word. When Anthony Johnson was released, let me start over. Anthony Johnson was the first Negro from modern Angola, and he was brought to the United States to work in the tobacco farms in 1619. When Anthony Johnson was released from his 7 years of service, he was legally recognized as a free Negro, and he ran a successful farm. And over a period of years, in 1651, Johnson owned 250 acres, and he had 5 black indentured servants. Now we're going to get into where the slavery started. This Anthony Johnson, listen to what he did. In 1654, it was time for Johnson to release a black indentured servant by the name of John Casser. John Casser had served his 7 years as an indentured servant. He was a black man, working for a black man, and he expected his 50 acres. Well, here's what happened. Instead of releasing Casser, Johnson told Casser he was extending his time past 7 years. Well, Casser left Johnson and became employed by a free white man by the name of Robert Parker. So you think, okay, so a black man owns these black slaves, black indentured servants, excuse me, and it's time for them to leave, and he says, no, you can't leave. Well, why can't you leave? You can't leave because I said you can't. So guess what? They left anyway. And here's what happened. Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker, the man who hired the other guy, I can't remember his name right now, Casser. Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker in the Northampton court in 1654, and in 1664, and in 1665, the court ruled against Anthony Johnson. Let me start this again, people. I'm getting excited. In 1665, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson could hold Casser indefinitely. The court gave judicial sanctions for blacks to own slaves of their own race. Now, what this meant was, it meant that black people could keep black people slaves as long as they wanted to. But the white people still had to turn them loose after 7 years. With this ruling, that's what that meant. That if you're black, you can keep your black indentured servants as slaves. So here we go. It wasn't until 1670 when whites were permitted to legally hold a black servant past the permanent 7 years. In 1670, the Colonial Assembly passed laws permitting free whites, blacks, and Indians to own slaves. Until 1670, they were not called slaves. But you have to remember, pardon me, in the very beginning, this was all started by a black man. In 1669, the number of free blacks prompted fears of a Negro insurrection. Can you imagine that? Yeah, they ought to have been afraid, because these people were treated terribly. And when they were freed, they should be afraid. But you know, here's what happened. Because of these fears, Virginia offered a repatriation. I'm going to try to get this right. Repatriation. Virginia tried to repatriate free black slaves back to Africa. They offered all these black slaves who had been freed after their 7 years of service a free trip back to Africa to never return. And if they did return, they would return as slaves and have another 7 years. So that's what Virginia wanted to do. They wanted to send them back to Africa. I heard stories about that from when I was a kid. You know, I don't want to hear all that crap. We're not sending nobody back anywhere. But the big thing was that the Colonial Assembly passed laws permanently to free the whites and the blacks and the Indians to keep slaves. Black slave owners continued to thrive in the U.S., and by 1830, there were 3,775 black families living in the South who owned black slaves. Did you hear that? 3,775 families in the South were black, and they owned black slaves. Why are we, as Caucasian white people, if you'll have it, why are we condemned for slavery when I can show you here the black on black slavery was rampant? Black slave owners continued to thrive in the U.S. And in 1860, there were over 3,000 black slaves owned by black men in the city limits of New Orleans. So you see, people, this is what kills me. True, I am a Southern, by the grace of God, American Christian patriot, and I love being from the South. I really do. I love it here. I love our history. But people, we can't keep on letting history be taught that is wrong. In our schools today, you're going to hear stuff nothing like what I just told you. It's going to be all white, all Caucasians, down all black people. That's a blatant lie, and it has been for decades and decades and decades. Sure, there's dissent. There's radicals on both sides. But then again, we had the same problem with Indians in the 1800s. Indians did nothing wrong. The white man moved in and tried to take their land. They should have fought back, and they did. But there again, it's like anything. You can't fight the government. Their power is too strong. That's what they want you to think. People, if we can stand together as Americans, all of us, black, white, red, Asian, I don't care. We can all stand together, united, in one quest, and that is to keep America free. And that's what it's all about. And when you start talking about paying reparations to people, you're talking about paying someone for something that caused them harm. Personally caused them harm. So since the midterm elections, reparations for slavery has moved from the fringes of the Demon Rat Party to the mainstream. I was just looking at the chat. I was trying to see there's Jeff Brow says you ain't got to apologize, Warhorse, and that's cool, man. Warhorse says we must all, every one of us, regardless of cover or creed, stand against this idiocy, and he's right. Fred Knowles says I need reparations for dealing with the leftist stupidity. You're right. DM, I'm glad you're here, DM. First time I've seen you, I'm sorry. I haven't been watching the chat. I'm I'm stuck on this topic and I don't want to get sidetracked. But I already am.
You do.
But anyway,
You're good.
the Democrats, get this. All these demon rats running for president are calling for outright cash payments for blacks as reparations. But I doubt very seriously if these dams realize what that actually means. I don't think they know for a minute what reparations to blacks would mean. It's true. It is true that President Reagan, God bless his soul, signed a reparation bill to pay Japanese Americans who were relocated to holding facilities during World War II, internment camps. Yeah, we did. During World War II, after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, yeah, we took all the Japanese Americans, those that were productive members of society, as well as just normal Japanese Americans in everyday life. We took those people and we put them in internment camps. We did. Until the end of the war with Japan. So President Reagan, and here's the deal. When President Reagan did that, those people were still alive. The people who had been harmed. They may have been children at the time, but they were still put in those internment camps, and President Reagan gave them reparations for their suffering in those camps. But you have to understand, these people were alive. They actually suffered the trauma. So yes, Reagan gave the Japanese who survived those internment camps and who grew up to be American patriots, he gave them reparations because they deserved it, because they suffered and they died. Okay? They deserved it. But then you're going to talk about, you can't really compare blacks with the Japanese. The reparation issue is not even comparable. The Japanese Americans given reparation actually lived and survived to receive the reparation funds, to where all former black slaves are long dead. There is not one human being in America, unless he has been sex trafficked or something like that under the table with all of these cabal things and gangs. Yeah, there might be people that's trafficked, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about reparations for people who suffered and died because of slavery. There is not one black person in America who lived during that time. They have suffered none of the ills of slavery. So they're not entitled to reparations, in my opinion. And as for blacks in general, the theory of whites, the exploitation, it holds that a racist ideology that was created to justify slavery and endured long after the abolition of slavery. Therefore, America is shaped by white privilege, and all white people who never harmed a slave or ever owned a slave will benefit from racism. All blacks pretty much say that black people all suffer severe damage because of racism, and therefore we owe them a debt, and they want their money. People, I'm not a racist, but I'm going to tell you something. Ain't nobody ever gave me a dad blame thing in this life. I've worked hard for every penny I ever got, and I'm a firm believer that if you're a true American, you'll get off your dead butt and do something and get you a job and live like a normal human being in this country. Think about the American dream. Stop thinking about how many women can I get pregnant and how many kids can they have and how much STAP money and all this other TAMP money, whatever it is, money coming in, and you're going to get a part of it. Let's be honest about this, people. Let's be honest. We as Americans, as America, we have allowed this to happen. Thank God we do have some great black American patriots. We do. And thank God for them. CLC in Florida, glad you're here. Well, you know, I try my best to not go too racial on any issue. You know, because I'm not a racist. I'm pro-life. You can't be pro-life and be a racist. You know, I love all children. I don't care who they are, where they're from, their creed, their color, their religion, I don't care. I love all children, and they all deserve a chance to live. But black nationalists start their careers, get this, people, they want independence and self-determination. And all the while, they're asking for handouts. So how can you want to be equal to anybody when all you're doing is standing there with your hand out? Get off your dead ass, do something. And that goes for every single American. That goes for, I'm going to tell you, I know some people around this city and around this county and state, and they're the low-life scum of the earth, and they're white. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, brown, or green. It don't matter. If you're a low-life, you're a low-life. And it's time to get out of that low-life situation and live the American dream. But see, people don't want the American dream. They want the handout. Some say reparations, you know, for cash to the blacks will do nothing to solve the problem. Blacks will never be satisfied, no matter how much money or how many benefits they receive. Cash reparations in Africa have done nothing, because it's just like in America. Blacks seeking reparations only want free cash and will never stop demanding more cash for something they never experienced in their life. It's all about the handouts and the money. And I'm going to tell you, I blame a certain person for all of this. Oh, granted, over the years, yeah, we had Margaret Sanger and her Planned Parenthood coming up so they could abort as many black children as they wanted to, and it was a racist concept from the beginning. And then you had people like LBJ, Lyndon Banks Johnson, the man who had President John F. Kennedy killed. I believe that with all my heart. This piece of crap, demon rat president, he not only sent 60,000 American boys and men to Vietnam to die, he did it with no cause or no reason. And not only that, he started the welfare system. This is his exact words. And if you're black and you're here, please forgive me. But I'm going to say the words that President Lyndon Banks Johnson said. And he says, we'll give these niggers welfare and they'll vote for us for 200 years. Now that's your president, black people. That's your president talking about you that way. So why don't you think it's time? Maybe you walk over to the other side. Maybe it's time you got off of your knees and out of the gutter and came up and said, yeah, I believe in the American dream. I can survive. I can do better. I'll raise my kids the right way. LBJ was the cause of the downfall of the black family in America. And I'm going to tell you, I blame him and only him. His name was Lyndon Banks Johnson. He's the man that caused the racial divide. We were racially divided before, but we got along. He's the one who gave all of these freebies, when if he hadn't given the freebies, everybody could have acclimated into society and everybody could have worked it out. But no, Lyndon Banks Johnson had his own plan, and his plan was to destroy America. And he did that. He destroyed so much. He was probably the worst president besides Jimmy Carter and the effeminate, limp-wristed faggot Barack Hussein Obama. And I can't help it, people. I hate that man. I'm going to tell you, I've read too much stuff on him. And he is nothing but a limp-wristed queer. And that's all he is. But you know, he got a former congressman in Illinois. And guess what he thinks? He thinks that he has a chance to run against President Trump in the primaries. Come on, people. This guy was a one-time congressman. He got defeated on his second term. But now he says he's going to defeat Trump in the primaries, and he's going to be the Republican that runs against a Democrat. Give me a break, people. He said, friends, we cannot take for granted more years of Donald Trump. I'm running for president, and it won't be easy, but bravery is never easy. Together we can do it. So now he's calling himself brave. He's patting himself on the back because he doesn't have anybody else to do it, and he has no backside because he's nothing but a rhino to begin with. His name is Walsh, and he told ABC. Imagine that, he told ABC rather than Fox or anybody else. He had to go to the mainstream media. I'm running because he's unfit. Somebody needs to stop and be an alternative. The country is sick of this guy's tantrums, and he's a child. Well, Trump replied by saying, whatever. He thought nothing of it. And people, that's what we need to think of it. It's an absolute non-issue, but I wanted to bring you that simply because Trump looked at him and he went, whatever. You know, this guy's not going to do anything. But you're right. Let's talk to the memo. Some of the blame goes to Richard Nixon. You're right. You're exactly right. He was corrupt as they come. He was the author of Watergate. You're exactly right. Keep me in check. So don't let me get off too far on one end without calling me out. And you're right, the memo. It was Richard Nixon that caused a lot of this. And then Battle Joy says, Mitch, stopping Obama's third Supreme Court justice was the best thing. You're exactly right. It was the best thing that ever happened. But we still have a real issue on the Supreme Court. So far, all of these supposed conservative Supreme Court justices aren't doing a whole lot. So, you know, I love history. And right now, they're not making very much history because they're siding with Ruth Bader Ginsburg on almost every issue. You know, I want to tell you what they're trying to say. Due to severe radical disparities in certain states, the Electoral College effectively weighs white voters over voters of color and opposes a one-person, one-vote system where all voters are counted equally. Now, this is the Ocasio-Cortez talking this crap, and here's what she wants to do. She wants to make it one vote, one person. One person, one vote. So we're going to vote on the popular vote. That's how we're going to select a president, is on the popular vote. Okay, well, let's stop and think about this for a minute. The heck with my script. Let's think about it for a minute. What it boils down to is this. You've got LA, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, all the big cities in the country. This is where people congregate. So you go out to Wyoming, Montana, Arizona, Oklahoma, South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa. Yeah, and then you start having fewer people. So now if you've got 10 times as many people in New York City as you do in Dallas, Texas, or 15 times as many people in LA as you do in Atlanta, well, how can the popular vote be fair? That means the cities with the most people will elect the president, and those in the heartland and in the South will have no vote. People, AOC is a total idiot. She's a fool, she's an imbecile, and she's a disgrace to our Congress. Amen. Along with Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayan Presley. Pardon me. Tony Patriot, glad to see you. Disabled Vets Perspective. D.A. Archer says, guys and gals, please invite a friend or two to see Bobby. Oh, thank you, D.A. I'm not going to read my own accolades, so thank you, D.A. I appreciate those kind words. And Dangerous Freedom said, yes, Bobby. And Warhorse said, AOC, an overrated clown. You got it, brother. And Shonda Graphics is saying hello to Tony, and Tony's saying hello to everybody else. And I'm glad you're here, Tony. Tony Patriot, you're a great guy. I love you, and I love your channel. And I want to thank you for all the support you've given me over the months. You have helped me grow. You've helped me do more than I ever thought was possible. People like you and D.A. Archer. D.A. Archer is a great friend. He's really smart. He's got all this stuff together, and he's helping me as well. And DM and Shonda Graphics, Liberty Smith, Spirit Talker. These people are modding for me, and they're doing a fantastic job. I don't normally have haters in here, but these people are in here as mods, and they have my permission to throw up anybody's URL who has content. And you know that by now. Pete the Patriot, Dangerous Freedom, Shonda Graphics. Liberty Smith has got a few things up there. Check him out. He's going to be going live before too long. Tony Patriot, a great patriot. You've got DM and History B. You've got Disabled Vets Perspective. You've got Knight's Armory. You've got all these great people who come in and out of my chat, and I go to their channels and I try to support them because they're great people. So, I'm not going to talk too much more about this kind of stuff, but I got to talk a little bit about China before I go. It's true enough that I don't agree with everything that President Trump does. That's a fact. I've said it many times. I don't agree with his policies all the time. But I do agree with his policy on China. It's about time we finally came and put someone in the White House who will be bold enough to take on the China challenge. And he's the right foreign policy, and he has the right ideas to do it. People, China has run roughshod over us for decades. Obama and Hillary Rotten Clinton pretty much just gave them all of our intelligence information. Just never mind giving them a password. We just won't put a password on it. That way you can come freely and look at all of our national secrets and things like that. And that's what the Barack Hussein effeminate Obama did, and his pedophile, pedivore cohort Hillary Rotten Clinton. And yeah, I called her a pedivore. And if I get wound up too much, I'll tell you the story of why I believe she's a pedivore. She's an adrenochrome addict. She can't live without it. Why would Barack Obama, tell me this, he had a party at the White House. Of course, there was no Secret Service allowed. He told them to take the night off. He had 20 or 30 people in there, and he ordered $65,000 worth of hot dogs from Chicago. Do you think for 1 minute these people were eating Chicago hot dogs for $65,000 for 20 people? No. These hot dogs was code name for little boys. And it happened right in our White House. These people are evil, mean, and sick. And I don't care what you think of me. People, I've done my research. You'll never convince me otherwise. But you know, President Trump's America First policy is simply that. It's common sense. It's America first. And that's the way it should be. America, like every other nation, should place its own interest above those of other countries instead of their citizens. This means that China must be confronted and stood up to, like the international bully that they are and that they have been under Barack Hussein Obama. President Obama had a policy of weakness and appeasement. He allowed China's power of economic might and military muscle to grow beyond anything it should have ever been. He was a traitor to America. And these were the policies of a traitor called Barack Hussein Obama. For President Trump, there is no other choice. We will have to see higher prices, and our exports may be reduced. But in the long run, these costs are going to be worth it all. We have to suffer through some short-term pain to achieve a long-term gain. And that's what Trump is looking at. He's looking at the big picture. He's looking down the road. How are we going to keep China in check? You know, if only that piece of crap Obama had stood up to the rising China threat in 2009, America and President Trump would not be in the position that we are today. Obama clearly had many opportunities to put China on notice, but he sat on his hands, his little feminine hands, and did absolutely nothing. He did nothing to match China or to deter them from building a massive military machine. Instead of increasing military spending for defense, this limp-wristed president faggot Obama cut military spending to the bone, as well as the threats to all Americans. Obama failed to stop China from making territorial claims all throughout Asia, whether it's in the South or the East China Sea, or over Taiwan, or over small islands and reefs. China was able, under limp-wristed Obama, to turn the Asia-Pacific into its very own sphere of influence. And that's what he's allowed to happen. People, I got a couple more pages, but I'm going to stop there. I want everybody to know that I appreciate you for being here. I enjoy doing these live streams. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of writing to get this stuff done. But it's a pleasure to do it, and I'm grateful and blessed to be able to bring you this stuff. But I want to thank people for being here. People like The Memo, Homegrown Variety Show, Auto Salvage Outlaws. Glad you're here, brother. Glad to see you. Warhorse, man, you're always great. I love to see you. Disabled Vets Perspective, Tony Patriot, Jeff Brandow, D.A. Archer, Jervis, Amy O.O. So glad you're here. I haven't talked to you in a while. Cornbread Burgess, man, I'm glad you're coming in regular. The Homegrown Variety Show, I'm going to say that again. Auto Salvage Outlaws, Terry Christ, Kay, Charity's Clarity. Yay, Charity, I'm glad you're here. I've missed you. And I want to talk to you sometime. You're a great lady, and I appreciate you for coming. Liberty Smith and Warhorse Shonda Graphics. People, I'm really grateful you're here. It's winding down to my hour. I don't necessarily stick to an hour, but I try to. You know, I have an idea of how much information I got and how much I'm going to talk in between. But sometimes I talk too much and I go over. Fred Knott, glad you're here. Jervis, Warhorse, Disabled Vets Perspective, Homegrown Variety Show, Charity's Clarity, Auto Savage Outlaws, Pete the Patriot. People, I want you to remember, I go live on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 o'clock. But for the next 6 weeks, I will not be going live on Wednesday night. I'll be doing a video during the day to make up for that, because my beautiful German Shepherd pup and I are going to school, and we're both learning a lot. So I won't be here live on Wednesday nights for a few weeks. But remember, Jervis, check him out. check out Pete the Patriot. He's got a great Patriot channel. He's a great guy. He has great content. You've got Tony Patriot, who goes live at Thursday nights at 8 p.m. He also comes on through the week with smaller videos and live streams. So check out Tony Patriot. He's a great guy. Liberty Smith posts a lot of stuff. He's big on this InfoWar stuff, and he stays on top of the news. So check him out. Shonda Graphics, she has content. Fred Knott, check out him. DM and History B on Saturday nights at 9 o'clock. They go live. They have a great show. History B is a educator, and DM is just full of knowledge. So they have a great show on Saturday nights at 9 o'clock. I'm trying to think. Disabled Vets Perspective on Sunday at 7 p.m. He comes on right before me. American Joe Show. American Joe, check him out. I think it's at 6 p.m. before Disabled Vets Perspective. He and Lee Red Nation have a Bible reading, and it's really good. You can check that out. So, it's after 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And before I go, I would like to say a small prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you once again, Lord, for being in our presence, Lord, and being with us this night. Lord, we ask you tonight as we go our ways, as we go our separate ways throughout the world and throughout the United States, Lord, tonight. Lord, go with my people, my viewers, my subscribers, and my friends. Lord, go with my family. Lord, go with those who are lost and undone without you. Lord, give them a knock on their heart that they may listen and hear and know that you are the Christ and you are our salvation. Lord, I thank you again for this opportunity to talk to my friends tonight. In Jesus' name, Lord, I ask that you bless us all as we go our way. In Jesus' name I pray. So be it, and amen. Everybody, it's been a great night. I want to thank you for coming. Man, I'm going to tell you, you're great people. And I don't mean to plagiarize you. I really don't. But it means that much to me. And I'm one of those people. Sandra, glad to see you. I haven't seen your name before, so I want to shout you out. Everybody, I love you. Remember our children. Remember the exploited, the trafficked, and the abused, and the sexually abused. Remember them in your prayers. Remember the aborted children and those in the womb. Lord, pray for those people. Pray for me, and pray for each other. My name's Deplorable Bobby, and thank you so much for being here. And I'll see y'all Friday Night Live and on a video Wednesday. Y'all have a great night. God bless. I'll see you later.
Good job, Bobby. Good job, Bobby.